Jez Corden! New challenger. Ains! Returning challenger. PTK Plan!
All right. And we are live. What's up, everyone? Welcome to a special episode of the Pixelated Echoes, episode 32 now. This is crazy. Part 2, January 25th, 2025 is the date. Of course, I'm your host, 3-Bit, and we got a great show for you guys today. Appreciate everyone for jumping on into our shows each week. If we have even 2 people in our live chat, it's always appreciated. Never expected. And thanks to our audio listeners and our viewers in the future. Thanks for just checking us out as well. Kind of before we get into our introductions, I will preface the show as this is the first time we've had more than 5 people, so I had to figure some things out. So if you guys like the layout, it's a bit different. If you guys dig it, let us know. And for our guests, I will try my best to get you guys out of here in a timely manner. But would love to get your take on all these topics as I definitely dive into all of your content and love your perspective on things. And to our audience, as you've seen in the intro, we have some challengers coming into the Pixelated Kingdom. So yeah, let's jump straight into the introductions. So, gonna go first with Jez. I'm joined today by the master of all the beans on toast, the executive editor over at Windows Central, a part of the crime duo podcast Xbox 2 with Randall Thor, the man, the myth, the legend of Beans and Toast written in the stars, has the name written, Jez Corden. How you doing today, brother? And how do I do with your Pixel clone?
Love it. It's awesome. I love my Pixel clone. I'm gonna message you later for like a full version of it.
Let's go.
But I had beans on toast for dinner only 2 hours ago.
So it's pretty accurate.
Pretty recent.
That was that intro is incredibly apropos, shall we say?
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, happy to be here.
Yeah. We were talking a little bit about behind the scenes about like stick figure fighting and all that, and dude, I love that stuff. I love hearing similar upbringings to mine. So we got PTK as well. You get your bomb suits ready. You know, PTK decided to drop down and back into the Pixelated Kingdom. Dude, you have over 300 episodes of the Shop Podcast. Amazing. This dude's a seasoned pillar in our community. Love his opinions, and we finally set up some time for him to come back to the show. So welcome, man. How have you been, and what have you been playing?
I'm good. Thank you, man. It's awesome to be here with these awesome gentlemen. Shout out to Ains. First time being on with Jez, actually. So we're making new connections here. Shout out to Jez. Always been a big fan. Met him in person as well a couple years ago. But glad to be here, man. Glad you invited me on. Some good topics. Gonna have a good time, man. I'm happy to be here, man. You guys have a freaking amazing show, 3-Bit. So keep doing what you're doing, brother. I'm a big fan. You and Fuzz.
Thank you, man. That means a lot. And gotta get to the founder and editor-in-chief of Season Gaming. You got a fellow Sega brother, right? And alongside Jez, a journalist, someone I definitely respect in the community for his gaming views as well. Everybody in the chat, please give a warm welcome to the Ains. Hello, good sir. It's been a minute.
It has been. Yeah, thanks, guys. Great to be here. I was just telling these guys before the show started. I've been a little quiet outside of Big Cast on the content creation front. So getting to circle back with some of you guys is awesome. Great group of guys here. Looking forward to it, man. It'll be fun.
Yeah, heck yeah. And as always, can't forget the man who's sitting in the co-chair who makes these episodes happen alongside myself. The real-life Felix the Cat, the racing prodigy who has put in thousands of hours in GT7 and Forza Motorsport. Don't challenge him on racing knowledge. He knows it all. My co-host, the Fuzzy Belvedere. How you doing today, man? And what have you been playing?
Oh, I'm doing great. Glad to be here with everyone. Thank you guys for hopping in. Yeah, it's been a crazy year to start as far as gaming. I'm looking forward to how this year plays out. But man, just so happy we got this roadmap out here. Everything that we're able to play, more and more devices that you can carry your games over to. Like I just picked up the Quest 3, so enjoying that right now as well. But man, this is going to be a good one. I got a great group here tonight. Yeah, let's get into it.
Yeah, heck yeah. And if you guys like our content, just be sure to subscribe, hit that notification bell to be notified when we do our next show. You should see a majority of the episodes from episode 1 all the way to now be updated on Spotify by the next episode. So just be on the lookout for that. I didn't realize how much work it is to put your stuff on Spotify. I was thinking it was going to be automatic. So like, I don't have to do any work. I just do the YouTube part and then it'll just upload. Nope. It has some work attached to it. So be on the lookout for by the next episode. You should start to see like a ripple effect of that. But yeah, it's good to hear what these folks have been up to. I've been playing Hogwarts Quidditch Champions. I know I like to surprise you guys.
I didn't expect that.
Games. Yeah. Actually been enjoying it. Like I was judging it a little bit. Maybe it was the art style. I was like, this is a kid game, or I don't know. Which is weird of me because I love bad movies and stuff. Like it's weird of me to even have that critique, but yeah, actually been really enjoying it. So I've been playing that over the Top Spin game, which I've completely ranted about in the last episode, where you're put in this never-ending spiral. Like you can't upgrade your character. So just go back, watch the episode, see my rant on it. But yeah, I've been playing Quidditch Champions, House Slytherin. It is what it is. But I didn't think it would be this good. So shout out to Quidditch Champion, whatever it's called, Quidditch something. Great game. So we're gonna get straight into our first topic, which is actually gonna be led by good old Fuzz here. So Fuzz, lead us away, man.
Yeah, like most recently after the Dev Direct, Phil made a special appearance on Gamertag Radio to do an interview. And I kind of picked up the story from Jez's recent publishing on Windows Central in reference to what Phil had to say. Like he touched on a lot of topics, stretching everything from what was shown at the Dev Direct to their outlook on hardware and such. And I know one of the key questions, like, well, why would somebody buy an Xbox, was brought up. But one of the focuses is what Phil's response is we want our Xbox hardware to win. Xbox CEO Spencer talks moving games to PlayStation and future Xbox consoles. And I wanted to start off the conversation with everybody's viewpoint. And I know there's some in the community that are not as happy with this, but I think in the grand scheme of things, if you're focused on the games, it'll all make sense. And I think that's probably the foundation of our hobby or our enjoyment for this. But with Phil pushing for the hardware, like to kind of win your sale, I want to get your guys' takes on what might that be for you, as far as what things you would like to either continue to see them innovate on, or other features that may come to it. And I'll start off with you, Jez, since this was one of the articles that you wrote about on Windows Central. What are some of the features that you want to see in future Xbox hardware, whether it's things like more quick resume type innovations, or maybe the convenience of portability, or things like that? What are your highlights or wish list items in that regard?
It is interesting because obviously Phil Spencer's comments the other day, he was saying stuff like, we want hardware to win based on the merits, like you said, and it's merits of the hardware rather than the exclusives. And I think within our community and the core community, it's sort of like, it's common sense to us that the reason you buy a console is for the exclusive content it has. But Microsoft is convinced that their research suggests that it's actually a vanishingly small amount of people who do purchase their devices based on that. And their research suggests that if they have a system that has better features, then they can potentially hook more people in next gen. Like I was told, like in LA, that just the controller is the fact that people are used to and or prefer the Xbox controller is a reason why people want to continue to come to Xbox more so than exclusive games. Because let's face it, Xbox hasn't been spectacularly good at exclusive games for a long time now. But anyway, what can I envision Xbox doing uniquely in the hardware space that can sort of maybe leapfrog PlayStation? I mean, it's kind of a controversial topic, especially among creators, but the next Xbox is almost certain to have some kind of NPU in it for artificial intelligence something. You know, I don't know what that looks like. Is it a gameplay feature? Like for example, can I send a prompt to Minecraft and tell it to generate a horror themed map for me using local NPU? I can't remember what the TOPS, it's called TOPS, isn't it? TOPS. Using local NPU compute or whatever. Or is there some kind of like, I don't know. I suppose AI is probably the obvious one, really, when given how Microsoft's moving with Azure and all that kind of stuff. So, but also like, Phil often talks about how he wants the next Xbox to be more open and be closer to Windows. So maybe the next Xbox comes with some kind of desktop mode, like on the Steam Deck, where you can boot into the desktop and tinker a bit more and sideload things and install launchers or other storefronts, or even access mods or run Win32 executables instead of the more traditional Xbox executable. I can't envision, like, they seem quietly confident that their hardware will speak on its own merits, but I suppose, and this isn't really a hardware feature, but this is something I've been thinking about increasingly recently, and it probably is wishful thinking, because this probably isn't going to happen. But I keep thinking, like, if our Xbox is subsidized by the software sales, right? But there's a hell of a lot more subsidization if you're selling those games on PlayStation as well. So could Microsoft try to emulate what they did in the 360 gen and come in at $100 cheaper than the PlayStation 6? And maybe that's their play. Be like, hey, our box is as powerful as, if not more so powerful than the PS6. And also it's $100 cheaper because we've doubled down on subsidies more so than PlayStation does. PlayStation half-asses PC, and they're never going to put games on Xbox. But if Microsoft's putting their games everywhere, they could cut through with a powerful narrative there and say, like, because we put games everywhere, we can now price our hardware cheaper than the competition. And if people only want to play Grand Theft Auto online and Fortnite and all that kind of stuff, does that facilitate Microsoft being a more affordable box? Or is that pure wishful thinking and Microsoft's probably just going to maximize profitability on the hardware regardless? But we'll see. It's something I've thought about. One thing I do think, just to finish off, I'm convinced that the next Xbox will have no paywall for multiplayer. Just the next Xbox, to try and incentivize people to upgrade as well. Be like, look, if you upgrade to the next box, you don't have to pay for multiplayer online.
Yeah, they need to do that.
That's something that they can leverage.
Yeah. Those are some interesting takes. I like the subsidy aspect of it, because that definitely could be a game changer in the sense that, and I don't want to get political or anything like that, but we are aware that tariffs are kind of this looming thing. So maybe tariffs, increase pricing overall. And if they're able to undercut, that can make the biggest difference when you could be looking at a $700 price tag versus a $600 or even a $500 price tag. So that definitely could gain them some ground in that regard. And then the whole paywall for online, that's another cool one in the sense that right now, with them leaning more into blurring the lines between console and PC, I'm pretty sure there's still some console players that kind of see, hey, our buddies over on PC don't have to pay that. Yeah, they have a much higher cost of entry kind of thing. But it just feels like the redheaded stepchild kind of thing. Not no slight to any redheaded stepchildren or anything like that, but it's like why does one side have to pay this extra amount in comparison to the others? And the subsidy aspect could definitely eliminate that and kind of make it a more, I guess you could say, balanced ecosystem across the board, whatever hardware you're playing on. So love those insights.
Yeah, imagine it. It's like that can be like, not only do we have Game Pass, which is the best value, but we also have the equivalent box, which is $100 cheaper. And I saw Jesse James in chat saying price does not matter. Look at the Series S, but the Series S comes with a huge trade-off of lower power. So like if the next gen Xbox can boast power and affordability at the same time, that could be a huge coup. But again, if I was a betting man, and I sometimes am on the horses, but if I would bet that they probably are going to be priced the same, and that really Microsoft's just like, we want all the profits, we want all the money, all of it.
Are we going? Just quick question, Jez. Sorry about that. Sorry to interrupt. Are you saying there's still going to be more than one SKU this next time around?
I think there'll be a Series X and a handheld.
Okay.
So I think the handheld will probably have multiple SKUs, where it's like they can get the price down by offering, maybe they start at 128 gigabytes SSD. Maybe they have a weaker SKU that's more aimed towards 2D games and battery life or something, and then a higher end SKU, which is all singing or dancing. Yeah. But I can see the handheld coming in at multiple price points for multiple different people, but I could see the but also maybe not. Maybe they will just go for one SKU. But at least we're going to get a handheld and a PS6 allegory, I think.
Nice.
Yeah, and we always kind of talked about like when this console is going to launch too, and if it will launch before PlayStation, and then kind of the race to get this game or get this console out before GTA, and how GTA 6 will kind of affect things, or because if Xbox is first with releasing their console and then it having a handheld version of it, technically GTA 6 might be the only way to play a handheld version until it gets a PC launch later on. So that could be interesting as well. But just go ahead, Fuzzy.
No, I was going to say, those are all awesome ways that they could definitely manipulate the next gen, getting that extra jump and having different options that just won't be possible, especially if it's not coming to PC. But wanted to get PTK's take as far as like with the Xbox hardware being, something where they're hoping their hardware will win based on either features or convenience or other factors. What would be one of your like wish list items for them to kind of wrap it to the next box, whether it be portable or the traditional, below the TV kind of box?
Wish list item. That's a great question. By the way, great answers too, Jez. Open up a lot of possibilities. I wasn't thinking as far as the subsidies, things like that. So glad you brought that up. But just to answer your question, Fuzz. Oh man, I mean, the crazy part about all of this is that each one of us, these consoles, these handhelds, whatever they decide to do, means something a little bit different. That's what makes this whole conversation very interesting. What do I want out of it? I mean, ultimately for me, I'm always, just because I am who I am, I always value just value in general. So I think it'd be interesting for them to go that route. I mean, I'm an Xbox fan because of the ecosystem personally, because of what it's offered me, because of the people I've met. I like a lot of the things that they offer in the ecosystem. So for me, as long as they continue down that route, do they do 2 SKUs? Do they do 1 SKU? Do they undercut themselves? Like Jez said, that's a slippery slope. You have to navigate this industry a little bit different this time around. So that's going to be very interesting to see how they do that. You guys brought up a lot of good points. I completely forgot about GTA 6. I'm not even going to lie, as far as that really is going to like set the market, very much like it does every single time it comes out. So we'll see the arms race there. I've always considered the handheld possibility odd for Xbox because it puts them in a bit of a weird position. They don't have like the history of like a Nintendo or a PlayStation, but they do have the technology to do something cool. So I just want them to do something really, really cool with the handheld, since I think we're all in agreement that that's what's next, right? I think we're all in agreement that
I think so. Yeah.
that's what's next. Yeah. Okay. So if that's the route that they go, man, I just want them to do something really cool. I think my the killer feature, I would say I would love, and I don't know if this is a pie in the sky, possibly, for essentially you to be able to maybe put that, say for instance, you come home, you turn that off, be able to turn your Xbox on and play the same game that you just got done playing on your handheld on the Xbox. Like maybe as a prompt pops up in your Xbox, do you want to finish this game on the Xbox? And you just finish it on the Xbox, when you get home. Something, a cool feature like that. It's practical. It's, it's something that you absolutely would use and it makes sense. If you're coming home from a long day at work or school, whatever, something like that would get me to buy it. Something like that would absolutely be a killer feature for me. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. I don't really have a whole lot to say in that regard.
I kind of wish like that just randomly reminded me of with Fallout being on Amazon. Like I thought it would be cool if they started to do some sort of cross integration there with like, hey, you can pick this up like let's say you're watching the Fallout show. You know how sometimes on Amazon Prime you can see the list of actors that are in the show. You can see like just different detailed information. I thought it would be kind of cool if it could take you right into the Game Pass app or something like that. Like play a game that's related to the Fallout universe and
oh, that would be cool.
Yeah. So Phil, if you're watching, make it happen.
Free ideas, huh?
Yeah, I like the handoff idea because I think that's probably the next phase for like a quick resume kind of thing where we already have like the cross save and cross play or cross progression type of deal. But like you said, you walk into the house, you got your portable, you can put that in the dock. You got your main Xbox under the TV, or maybe you have the Xbox app on that TV, and it's like, hey, you want to finish it here? And you pick up right where you left off. You didn't have to power down or save or anything. It's just it knows continuously where you're playing. That would be awesome. And then like what 3-Bit was saying, like almost like what the original vision was, I think for what was it, Stadia, where you were supposed to be able to watch a YouTube of like maybe the game itself, and then it's like, oh, you can play now and hop right into the game kind of thing. Like if they can pull that off, that would be pretty cool as well. But Ains, what is one of your wish list type of items as far as that would win you? I mean, I'm pretty sure you'll wind up picking up the hardware no matter what kind of thing. But what would be like one new feature or a continuation or upgrade of a feature that exists currently, or something completely not like even thought of kind of deal that might be that standout for you as well?
Yeah, I gotta be honest with you guys. I don't know. I will pick it up regardless. I mean, that's just me. I buy every gaming thing anyway. But I listen to Jez and PTK and you guys' thoughts on where it could be going, and I think all of that is very viable. I think what jumps out to me is, and I'm reading the chat as well, and people talking about kind of play anywhere, and Game Pass obviously is their killer app, and all these kinds of things. And I think to myself, from my perspective and a usability standpoint, Xbox has already been the leader. They've already been the leader where I can play on my PC and Xbox the same save file, the same game. You get them both with Game Pass. I do that today. Even when I'm reviewing games, you know what I mean? I'm doing that and playing on two platforms to kind of get that experience. And I feel like they had the best hardware this generation. If you just look box to box, you know what I mean? In terms of capabilities. And I honestly don't know. I think it's a very hard proposition. I think the thing that Xbox fights back against, and I've said this for a while, right, is just global brand presence. They are well behind. Yeah. And I think that, and I just think that Nintendo's Nintendo. You know what I mean? And
I don't even include, they're Disney to me, Ains. I don't even include them with
yeah, I mean they're their own thing. They crushed it with the Switch. They're gonna crush it with the Switch too, and they're their own thing. So then I look at PlayStation and I think, well, Xbox's ecosystem is already better for me, I'll say, than PlayStation has been for some time. But that brand strength is tough to overcome. So then I think to Jez's point of like, okay, so if Microsoft is really going to lean in here, where does Microsoft, from a hardware perspective or application perspective, have expertise that PlayStation or other competitors can't really compete? And so then you start to think about the cloud space, the AI space. That's where Microsoft as a company is, as with the other big companies are kind of driving. So I could certainly see it's going to have something in that capability to build upon in the future. I mean, that's where just so many industries are going right now. But what does that look like? How is that a meaningful experience for me? And is it something that is wholly unique? Could PlayStation not replicate it 12, 18 months, 2 years down the line? I don't really know. That's really tough. So that's a long-winded answer to say I have no damn idea. But I do think if what Jez says is accurate, and we all know Jez well enough here, I trust him, that if they do get into a space where they have a home console and a portable console, and those two are technologically kind of pairable enough to run the same games, and they continue with the ecosystem they've already built, where your profile on Xbox connectivity is the same wherever you go, and it shares your save file and everything. That's a cool proposition. In terms of a price, I don't know what that looks like, and then you get into the space of it gets into the space of, well, if I can buy a Switch 2 for $300 and play 90% of the same games anywhere I go, compared to Xbox ecosystem where you need to buy a portable and a console for $800 combined. I'm making this up, obviously, but there's a lot of questions I think you have to answer there as well. But I think that would be a cool offering from Xbox, and one that I'd be interested in.
Nice.
Yeah, that's a lot of words to say nothing, but you know what I mean. I'm glad I'm not like Jason Ronald, because that I've talked to him, and that's a tough job, man.
Yeah,
trying to figure out what's going to be successful.
Shout out to Mr. Ronald, man. That guy.
Trying to figure out what's going to be successful a decade down the line is crazy. It's tough.
Yeah. No, I feel you on that, as far as like when it comes to how their ecosystem is laid out. Like I was begrudgingly staying away from PC as long as I possibly could. Like the only reason I wanted to use PC was for mods for things like GTA and stuff like that. And with this dual entitlement stuff, it's like, all right, I'll give it a try. And it's like, wait a minute, Starfield looks great on the Series X, don't get me wrong, but man, what it can do with when it's on a PC, if you got a decent gaming rig PC, and then the mod aspect of it, and just all the other things within Game Pass, the fact that, like you said, the saves hopping in between, both, the console space, whether you want to play it on the big TV or play it on like your monitor and stuff like that. Yeah, it's already a great ecosystem. But I'm pretty sure Jason Ronald seems like that wizard guy that will be able to figure out what we needed.
He's a brilliant
that we
dude.
Didn't know we need. Like, I have to give him credit on Quick Resume is the game changer for me in this generation. I know that there were some talks about Quick Resume being something in Windows 12. Fingers crossed they can figure that out on, like, I guess the virtual machine aspects of it for it. But yeah, I'm looking forward to whatever they come up with. But 3-bit, what would be? Oh, I know you made mention as far as like being able to hop from like the video into the game and stuff, whether it's from something on Amazon Prime or YouTube and such. But any other like highlighted, features or any other things you could see that might be like that standout feature going into the next gen for their hardware?
Yeah, good question. I mean, besides like figuring out the exact pricing, and that's something Ronald and the team have to figure out. I'm glad that's not my job. But I think they have to, if they are doing the handheld experience, they have to kind of figure out a good experience to make Xbox work with handheld. Luckily, the ecosystem that they already have is they already set it up that way. It works for PC, mobile, with this is an Xbox and this is an Xbox. So they kind of already set up themselves for success there. But the handheld experience is to a lot of people unique and fun. You basically, I'm just interested in how they cater the Xbox console to the handheld and what features may come out of that. Like if they are doing a handheld, obviously, like what makes this experience better for a handheld, or how can I have this be a seamless experience with a console, where it's just on the TV. I'm just interested in how they plan on doing all of that. And there's a lot of different ways they could do it, whether it's a docking situation, whether it's like primarily handheld. If you want the console version, you could do that separately, different SKU, or I don't know. I don't know how they plan on handling all that, but I am definitely interested. And Jez mentioned kind of like AI and how that can factor into things. I mean, yeah, that's definitely a factor, because if you think about the current development pipeline and how things are, and I'm a developer, so I've seen the whole pipeline. A lot of what is the problem right now with a lot of development in games is they are trying to figure out how to optimize games towards the end of the pipeline. So they'll like make the game, yada yada, and like, okay, let's slap some optimization thing on top of it, and that is constantly leading to games not being where they should be. At least in Unreal Engine 5, we've had conversations on that, right? But what AI could do is kind of alleviate a lot of resources and in at least gaming engines. They could also attach it to the hardware itself, of course, but like AI could alleviate a lot of that if they do it correctly. And I think where Xbox has used AI so far, and anyone here could correct me if I'm wrong, but when cloud was being a thing, when they started explaining like, oh, we're going to put everything to the cloud, we saw examples of that being Crackdown 3, right? Mm-hmm. Which, that didn't end very well. And then we also had Forza, where they're like, oh, the erasers can learn from your behavior and things like that. Those are like the two obvious examples I can think of with AI and how it's used currently. But there's a lot of different use cases that you could apply to the next generation of consoles coming with AI. So I'm hopeful that they can figure something out with them leading with I believe they're leading with OpenAI, or maybe I'm mixing AI companies.
No, they have a pretty deep investment with OpenAI.
Okay, they do. So they could do some really cool stuff with the next console. I'm curious with just how GTA is also going to change things as well. Like that is the true race for a lot of people. A lot of people are staying out of the way. Like, I'm not releasing my game next to GTA. Like, are you crazy? So I think in terms of console release, if Xbox is first as well, that is just it's interesting, right? If Xbox releases a handheld device, in marketing wise, they could be like, I am the first console that could play GTA 6 on the go. That in itself is marketing. If they do it right, that could be really cool for a lot of people. So definitely looking forward to whatever they got. Any lasting thoughts on what I said to anybody, really?
Well, the handheld thing, I just quick mention here. The great thing about this handheld thing, as far as the timing, is that they've had a ton of examples. They've seen one that's actually successful, right? The Steam Deck. So you have something to at least look at. Because prior to it, they'd done this 6-7 years ago. There was there's no viable example on the market at that time, So they have a few examples. Other companies are now made, Lenovo, all these other companies have kind of made headway and have successful handhelds. So you have things to look at now as an example of, value versus, as far as what it offers on the actual capability hardware side, things like that. So they're in a pretty good spot. They have things to look at, and then they can kind of figure it out from there. So hopefully they use that thing, those things as references.
For me, I think talking about the AI aspect, although I would love to see more integration into games as far as its usage, but I can think of like probably the easy surface level stuff, like where you're on the way home from work or school or wherever, and you can already tell the AI, hey, set a party invite in the next half hour, or when I get into my network, as far as they'll know that I'm home, send out party invites to this person, and start up, this game. And it could pretty much automate some of that stuff. So by the time you're in front of the TV, everything is pretty much ready, set to go once you have the controller in hand. I could totally see them at least doing that stuff on the front end, and then maybe on the back end have it where stuff like what you said. The AI training that they did for Forza, maybe they do some of that in other games where, okay, you just want to do the single player aspect. Well, we can train the AI, like you could put it on adjustable as far as like the AI level and stuff like that. So as you get better, the AI gets better. If you start to struggle, then it not that it gives you some sort of forgiveness, but it's like, okay, we'll ease up a bit. Maybe they reduce the amount of enemies on screen, or ones attacking you right off the bat, type of thing. But I think for at least getting into my killer, well, what I wouldn't say a killer feature, but the feature I'm hoping that they're able to incorporate in the handheld is the ability to play the console apps, like what is on our consoles now. I just think of those as either EXEs or apps. So if you have the console version of, let's say, The Division on your console, and I know third parties might have something to say about this, but if I can play that, install it on my handheld, my Xbox handheld in the future, and then also install like maybe the PC version of Starfield, and they're both playable on that same device, I don't have to worry about any Xbox hardware, moving forward at that point, because it takes all of my previous software that I had access to. The Xbox One titles that I have in digital format, the 360 titles I have in digital format, my Xbox One titles I have in digital format, and it moves it forward to that portable. And I don't have to rebuy some of those games that, you know, made like Dying Light. I don't want to have to rebuy it. I think I bought it like twice already.
Yeah,
I don't want to have to
double
buy
dip.
the first one again to play it on that handheld. And if they could do that, as well as like any of the new games play on that, I'll be golden. Now that's where third parties might have something to say about it, but if they can work it where it's like, hey, the ecosystem with Xbox labeled products, that's just one device. I think they can pull that off. And if I can play all those without having to stream it, it's natively installed on the device. I think that's an easy win. But that may not be the case for everyone. But I know for me, having a mixture of the Xbox, my library between both parts of hardware, and some of them being dual entitlements, some of them not being, that would be the game changer for me.
Yeah, heck yeah. Good points, man. Love the conversation. I think we all took it. We took it from Jez's point, and then we all went in different branches of conversation, which I had no idea where it's going. So that was actually really dope. I kind of want to get more into the article a bit, and because it goes into Xbox's strategy and where they're kind of headed. And so shout out to you, Jez. Your article's is on the screen. We got Paris Lilly. He asks Xbox CEO Phil Spencer, there's concern in the community that if you're putting games on other platforms, why would I still want an Xbox when I can get that experience on another platform? Xbox CEO Phil Spencer described how Xbox can win using hardware innovation rather than exclusive games. I want people to pick hardware based on the capabilities of that hardware and how that fits into the choices they want to make about where they want to play. We want our hardware to win based on the hardware capabilities that we have. And that kind of spun into the conversations that we kind of went into a little bit. And then later on, Spencer described how the most successful games in 2025 are simply games that are everywhere, describing games like Fortnite, Minecraft, and so on. I want to build a platform that services creators that are trying to meet people on every screen. Spencer reiterated previous comments from the likes of Xbox president Sarah Bond that the firm remains all in on hardware, describing it as fundamentals to Xbox. On our own hardware, I think it's fundamental to what Xbox is. It's not lost on me that box is in the name of our brand. I say from the position that I'm in, I look at hardware as a critical part of what we do while not trying to gatekeep the games off of other places. So, yeah, what I kind of got out of this interview is Xbox just basically doubling down on the strategy that we've kind of speculated on in the past. I think coming out of the partner event when Xbox mentioned that it was just 4 games, don't take it as a sign that others are coming. Myself, Fuzzy, Mav, all kind of hit on like, yeah, it's more than 4 games. So I pretty much already accepted around that time that it happened, that this is kind of the new direction of Xbox business wise. I believe there are obvious advantages to that. When you're looking at the top selling games each month on PlayStation, for example, you have like more Xbox IP in Sony's top selling games than you do PlayStation's own first party in the top selling games, like every single month. Like you'll see Minecraft up there, obviously you see Call of Duty, et cetera, et cetera. You also get an advantage to people who never invested in your ecosystem. So you have people that are just comfortable, right? Like, I'm staying on PlayStation, I'm not going anywhere. You basically get those people to be like, well, shoot, it's on PlayStation now. Why not invest? So those are like the two obvious ones that kind of come to mind for me. Like people who never planned on getting an Xbox, now they're a customer to you, and you're getting those additional funds that you wouldn't have otherwise. But since this hasn't really been done before, it kind of brings up questions to overall market share from like a personal perspective. Like I'm loving Game Pass, Indiana Jones is my game of the year and stuff like that, but it kind of brings to question, Sony's market power, their branding, et cetera, et cetera. So let's just bring it to you guys, what you think. Like I think we know Xbox wanted to get to a place where they could have this release cadence of big games per quarter, and it seems like going forward, they are looking to have that. So we'll bring it to you first, Ains. Like, what are your overall thoughts, man?
Yeah, first off, Indiana Jones, incredible game.
Yes.
My game of the year last year too. Loved it. Yeah, I think they have the services in check, and I think looking through Jez's article and what you kind of mentioned, and I know it's a conversation point a lot of times, is that differentiation and getting people to understand that that value that Xbox offers in that space. I was just having a conversation the other day of we were writing an article, actually, someone actually on the Rebirth, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth on PC, and coming a year later, right? Full cost, and you're paying for it. I'm like, there's another example where PlayStation's later on PC, and you certainly don't get any cross-buy or any incentive to buy on PC, right? And I think those types of features in the Xbox ecosystem are just very, very beneficial to players. And I don't think, Phil said it, everyone said it, I don't think enough people know that. I don't know if they're not educated, they're not aware of it, they're not, they just don't even have Xbox in their mind. In that kind of space. I'm not sure what it is. It's probably a combination of all of them, but yeah, I think those are the types of things that you really want to look at. And I think the problem for me is I kind of said this last time, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but I feel like they've had these things. So how do you get that? How do you change that messaging? How do you change that space to make it feel like there's an actual differentr here in the marketplace, and you should be paying attention to it? And I don't know what that is. 30 years later,
right?
Yeah, and I know Phil has said this before, and I may mess up the quote, but he said they lost the most important generation in the Xbox One. And we've all had very many conversations about what that means and the downstream impact of that. I think it's significant. I think it's more significant than I think is maybe taken at times, because this can be anecdotal, I realize, but so many conversations, so many people I know are baked in an ecosystem now. And in the console space, that's, more PlayStation than Xbox. And there's things tying to that, from digital game library to, one that gets thrown around a lot, which is crazy to me because I'm not one of those guys, but I know many people are, is trophies. And again, you had Xbox here leading the way with the achievement system, and then basically kind of sat on their laurels. Achievements are seen, at least from my perspective, as the not as significant as trophies for whatever reason, right? And I think that getting someone to really fully invest in a different ecosystem is a very, very big challenge. And I guess I'll end with this to say that there's nothing that I'm hearing from Phil or anyone else that makes me think there's a true differentiator that is going to take them over that curve. Now, that's not to say that Xbox isn't going to be successful or profitable or all these things. We know that's they've got a very bright future in that regard. I'm just purely talking about the conversation when it comes to hardware and what it looks like in the mass market appeal. I don't know what they do to change that.
Yeah, me either. Me either.
Go
ahead. No, you go.
Well, no, I mean, you know why, Ains? Because you can't buy what Nintendo and PlayStation has. You can't buy legacy, right? You know, you can make they could make 10 game of the years. That does not mean that 100 million people are just going to jump from PlayStation to Xbox, right? So, like, there's certain things that you cannot purchase. And I do think you are correct. What you said 3-bit about them losing that generation. Oh, I'm sorry, Ains, about them losing that generation. And that being a big, huge ripple effect. They lost a lot of time. They had to completely reset. They almost lost Xbox. I think a lot of people forgot. Satya and Phil had a conversation. Xbox was almost Sega at a certain point, right? You know, had that conversation not went the way it actually did. So, you know, this is slippery slope. And to be fair, Ains, you know, we're all a little bit older. Change is uncomfortable in this space. We used to play on cartridges at one point. Then we played on CDs. That was a little weird. We had a little weird. Yeah. We had to get used to it, right? I'm not saying this is me not trying to undercut, you know, anybody that's uncomfortable with change, because I'm not trying to. It's just, you know, this is a changing space, you know, and that's something that people have to adapt to. But for Xbox, I 100% agree with you, Ains. I don't know if there is a feature or something that they could possibly put in a box to change that, but what they can do is embrace who they are. And I do, at least, if you're going to have a focused approach, focus on what you're good at. And I at least applaud them for doing that. It may not be, you know, everybody may not like the direction that they're going in. There may be some things subsequently that we may look back and be like, I wish they would have done that differently. But we don't really know how this is going to turn out, Ains. We don't have an example, right? No third party or no company like Xbox has ever done something like that and said, forget it, we're going to tear the walls down and just put everything everywhere. Not as big as Xbox or as prominent. Nobody with a console has ever done that, right? So it's an uncharted territory for Xbox. But I can understand the discourse and discontent within the community. A lot of us paid a lot of money, you know, put a lot of, I would say, blood, sweat, and tears. There's just time into, the Xbox brand itself. You know, some people more than others. Some people run around with the, you know, waving a green flag, you know, things like that. It's all fine. I get it. I'm a sports fan. You know, I'm a Steelers fan. I wear paint on my face. I get it, right? You know, we're all fans of things at certain points in times. But, you know, maybe I'm a little bit more optimistic than the average gamer, man. I'm excited because if you think of everything, if we take everything and strip it away, Ains, what are some of the biggest things we've asked Xbox to do? We asked them, can you get your marketing together? That seemed to improve dramatically over the last 2 or 3 years. We asked, can you please get your games lineup together? They seem to have finally gotten that together, at least just for the foreseeable future. I think we would all agree. We asked them, you know, please, you know, dig in your war chest. Go get some talent. You know, put the talent together. Allow them to collaborate. Do that. You know, spend some money, for crying out loud. They've done that. So I think some of that falls off, you know, when we get into these big detailed conversations, you start asking Phil about overarching things, you know, that he can't really answer in real time because these things haven't materialized yet. So I think it's a real slippery slope there, but they're in an interesting position. That's going to be key to see how they maneuver. And I think that they picked a direction, whether or not it lasts or whether or not it's extremely successful remains to be seen. But I'm okay with the focused decision. I don't want you to be everywhere. You know what I mean? I want you to be, at least everybody be on the same page about what you guys are trying to do. I'd much rather that than the Google approach and you throwing stuff at the wall, it's not working, and you taking stuff away, putting it back, trying to fix it. At least have a focused approach, and at least that's what they seem to have to me.
Yeah, I think you nailed it, man. I think you're right. You're absolutely right in the sense of they've done a lot of what many players were hoping for from Xbox several years ago. And I mean, I know we're going to get to it, but we just got off of an Xbox Developer Direct, which, I felt was excellent. I think the overall consensus was excellent. And their first party and or, umbrella publishing lineup that they have coming is insane. So I agree with you. I mean, someone in the chat said, who cares about the when I was talking about kind of the feature that can change that console perception. And I'm definitely in the camp. I just wanted to be clear. I'm in that camp. I'm not, I don't care. Because I'm going to play wherever and still love Xbox, and their game lineup looks incredible and I'm all in. So it doesn't bother me at all.
Yeah, for the sake of conversation.
Yeah, just for the exactly. I'm just having the conversation. I mean, for me personally, it doesn't matter. But I very good points, BTK. I you and I have talked a lot about this. I'm in complete agreement.
Yeah. I'm also like, Xbox is notorious, and we talked about this on the show, for kind of jumping in the pool, and while other competitors kind of like looking, like, is it safe? Like, is it good? Like Xbox One, for example, with all those features, was like, what? You're having a console that's always online, and like what? That, and now we have a ton of stuff that's always online, right? So they
always
are
ahead of that curve.
Yeah, always ahead of the curve. Whether sometimes that bites them. I mean, a lot of times it bites them because when you're the first to do something, or the first to kind of jump in something, it doesn't always end very well. They didn't do themselves any favors with some of the statements they were making also back in the day. Like, you want an Xbox? Go buy. I forgot what the statement.
Yeah. The Matrix Special is what I call it.
Yeah, the Matrix Special.
We got a device for you if you're on a submarine and you don't have access to internet. We got a Xbox for you. So
it's called a Game Boy. Have fun.
Yeah. Go play something else. So, Jez, I just want to bring you into the conversation, man. What are your overall thoughts on basically what you wrote in the article, what some of the statements we made, and et cetera, et cetera?
Well, it's like, I mean, sitting here listening, I agree with you guys. Like, I'm one of those people that is baked in. Like, I think Ains used that phrase. I'm baked in. Like, there's literally nothing PlayStation could do to get me to abandon my hundreds of games that I own digitally locked to Xbox. There's nothing PlayStation could do. I don't own a PlayStation. I don't feel the need to buy a PlayStation. The couple of games from PlayStation that I'm interested in playing, I already own on Steam, and they're just in my backlog gathering dust. Same with Nintendo Switch. I had a Nintendo Switch, never played it, in the drawer gathering dust. Xbox has just been my home for well over a decade now. 15 years, 16, 17 years, God knows. And it's like, this is where I play, and for the stuff that isn't available on Xbox, it's always available on my PC, So it's like, all the arguments that I see PlayStation fanboys leverage against Xbox, like, why buy an Xbox? Why buy an Xbox? It's like, well, why buy a PlayStation? It's the same argument. It's like, there's nothing PlayStation could do that my PC doesn't do already. So, but like you guys said, they lost the wrong generation. Xbox One was the generation to lose, because that's when people got baked in. It was that time frame where people decided, this is going to be where my digital library lives, and this is where my online presence is going to be. This is where sorry, it's getting late here. This is where my my subscriptions are going to be, or my cloud saves are going to be. So Microsoft has sort of been really on the back foot since then, and it's just, there's nothing that can do to fix that. The cost of user acquisition is way too high, and in business, when we're talking about, the cost of user acquisition, it means like, it's sort of like an estimate based on how much do I need to spend to get someone onto my platform versus the competition, right? And if you're, say, for example, I don't know, a supermarket or something, you cost of acquisition is not necessarily as high as it would be, because people aren't digitally locked to Walmart, are they? In the same way that someone's digitally locked to their Xbox. The cost of user acquisition for Xbox is just way too high to justify not putting. It's math at the end of the day. It's pure math. So it's like, it's way Cost of user acquisition is way too high to justify not putting all of those games onto other platforms. So it's the ultimate one. It's the ultimate. It is what it is. You know, it's just the mathematical reality of the situation. Now, I think the issue and the drama and the contention is well earned by them because they are asking us to take everything they're saying on faith. You know, Phil Spencer is saying things like, "We want our hardware to win on its merits," and it's like, yeah, but the Series X doesn't do anything that the PlayStation 5 doesn't do. So there's no real merit there. So you're talking about next gen, but you haven't told us anything about next gen. So you're expecting me to have all this faith in your strategy and have all this faith in the future when you yourselves haven't shown faith in your own install base. So like, if you don't have faith in your install base that it's profitable by itself or it's viable by itself, why should we have faith, you know? But really, that's a concern of the hardcore and the core community because 90% of the audience, they're just playing Fortnite and they don't give a shit about any of this. That's where the business has moved to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I just really wish they'd throw us a bone, man. Because at the end of the day, we're the core fans and the people that are sort of like stuck with Xbox through all the bullshit, you know. Before they had Fortnite and microtransactions feeding their business, you know, that legacy fan base that feels abandoned. There's things they could do to throw that fan base a bone, you know, low hanging fruit, you know, shit like I always talk about just adding more features to the achievement system, you know.
Exactly.
The platinum trophies, that's low hanging fruit. Like, why can't they do some of that stuff? It just feels like, you know, they don't care, but at the same time, it's like, well, why is Phil out here doing podcasts and shit? Because the very act of going on a podcast and the activity of doing that kind of stuff, that's for your core fans. None of those casual Fortnite people are watching Destin's podcast or reading my article about Destin's podcast or Gamer Tag Radio's podcast or any of these interviews. None of the casuals are reading any of that stuff. So they're still actively out here trying to curate a fan base by doing this stuff, which is where I think the disconnect is. The disconnect between how Xbox is behaving versus what it's actually doing. They're doing things for the core community, like doing those podcasts, while slapping them in the face with the other hand, you know, and asking them to just take everything on faith, you know. So I think that could be doing a better job in that regard, but it's also, to some degree, I suppose, ripping off the Band-Aid.
Yeah.
And it's just like, you know, at the end of the day, we're giving you all these games. Shadow dropped Ninja Gaiden 2 Black into Game Pass. And Game Pass is exclusive to your platform, and the ability to play on cloud or take your save files to PC, which, again, all this is potentially niche kind of stuff today, but maybe it won't be in the future. You know, I'm like someone who actively uses all that stuff, who actively uses the cloud saves. Like, my girlfriend's got the TV, and it's like, oh well, I can play Ninja Gaiden Sigma on my laptop, you know, with the same cloud save.
Yeah.
Or you know, if I'm too lazy to sit at the desk, I can stick it on the cloud with my X-ray glasses or something like that. You know, I love that stuff, but my God, there can't be many people actively using the ecosystem like that. I've got to be like one of very few that actively uses it that way today. And it feels like Microsoft's catering for me. But what about the rest of the core who just want a great console experience? And I think that's where Xbox is creating this unnecessary frustrations right now. But
Yeah, I honestly I think it's like we've talked about this. It's like the money men have kind of taken over once Activision and Blizzard kind of happened, and I think what happened is they saw the console market has become stagnant in a lot of ways. So every single
Fully
generation, yeah, every single generation, Xbox and Sony are fighting for the same amount of users, right? And when Phil mentioned like, oh, this is the worst generation to lose, I think a lot of people got comfortable in their ecosystem, and Xbox is like, listen, we can grow outside of this ecosystem potentially. You know, mobile and PC are way bigger audiences than the console user base, and I think they just looked at that and they're like, maybe this is the best solution. Is like we could still fight for some of our console peeps, but I think they started to just look at the numbers and just made a decision like, hey, let's just have more people on our PC, on our mobile, and then just kind of go from there.
one of my things, right, about Microsoft in general, and I've been covering Microsoft now for 10 years as of March this year, it's like they don't have a good product mentality. They need a product guy higher up. You know, like, I don't know if you guys saw recently, but they recently rebranded Office to Microsoft 365.
That was
and it's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
you take a brand that's recognizable, 40 years of Office brand. You own office.com, which has to be one of the most valuable domains on earth. 40 years of history, billions of users, not millions, billions of users. And you rebrand it to Microsoft 365, which doesn't even describe the product. And then you go even further and rebrand it to Microsoft 365 Copilot, which is probably the worst brand in the history of time. And it's like, there is no one at Microsoft in the C-suite that is telling them, actually, this is fucking stupid. This is a bad idea.
I mean,
And I
I've
think,
had my
like,
complaints on that too. Like,
yeah,
never liked the
It's-
Xbox name conventions.
No. It's like there is this sort of lack of product discipline within the C-suite of Microsoft, and this is a historic problem. And when they occasionally do get good product guys in, like Panos Panay, who's running Surface for ages, they end up ousting him because he's like, because a lot of the things that go into making a product something that's beloved is not necessarily something you can measure in a spreadsheet. You know,
Yeah.
Steve Jobs famously
I was
said,
going to say
Microsoft-
Apple's good at that.
Yeah, exactly. And I was just about to bring up Steve Jobs. You know, Apple gets that. And Steve Jobs famously said about Microsoft that Microsoft doesn't have taste. How do you measure taste in a spreadsheet? You can't do it. And that's why, like, I've often thought, like, covering Microsoft all these years is like, they follow telemetry too much. And there's not enough, like, heart and soul in some aspects of what they do. Like,
Can I give you an example, Jez?
Yeah, go on.
So would it be like when they brought in Tina Amini? Because you remember what these showcases looked like before they brought her in. They were not as creative. They didn't seem as to touch with, you know, just with the general public and, you know, what she's brought to the table since she's been there as far as these showcases, the directs, things like that. Would you say that's a similar, like bringing her in would be that what you were talking about as far as a product person, somebody that's in touch?
Yeah, you read my mind, man, because I was literally going to say, like, Tina Amini and what they've been able to build with the dev direct stuff and like the partner direct, and I've heard there might be a partner direct in March again this year. You know, those have been received really, really well. You can't spreadsheet a good show like that. You can't mechanically deliver a show like that. You need someone who just has good taste, you know. And oftentimes Microsoft has sort of failed on that note. And I think like the lack of taste and the lack of intuition with what resonates with human beings and
I
customers
think
at
it's more
large.
data, like
Too data driven.
they are very data driven to the point where they are looking at the future 10 years ahead, and sometimes like, let's do it now, you know. And I do think Microsoft leads with that in mind in a lot of cases. To your point, Jez, like I think they get the data people. They're like, well, it makes sense to rebrand Microsoft 365 because we later down the line want to do something with AI. We want that to have 360. You know, they're probably thinking about more so in the strategy area, but I think creatively, yeah, they're not always the best. Because when I think about like Xbox 360, I thought that was a weird name at the time. I still think it's a weird name, but solidified with people now, so that's fine. So you go from like Xbox to Xbox 360 to Xbox One to Xbox Series X. I just think they're terrible names. But that's always been my opinion on the naming conventions of Xbox. But
Yeah, I mean, they
digress.
did it with Surface this last year. They did it with Surface. They up until like there was Surface, and then Surface 2, Surface 3, Surface 4, Surface 5, Surface 6, 7, 8, 9. They didn't do Surface 10. They just started calling it Surface again. It's like, oh, okay, we're not doing Surface 10. We're doing Surface now.
Yeah.
And then this year, the Surface was called Surface 11th edition. And it's like, what? What the So like it really pisses me off as a journalist and a writer, because SEO is very important and the way you title things is very important. And when you're naming things in a dumb way, it makes it hard for me to produce content that people can search for, you know. So we're like, when we write about Surface Pro 11th edition, we just write Surface Pro 11, even though Microsoft itself doesn't call it that. But it's just, and you notice this happened as soon as Panos Panay leaves the company. Panos Panay left, and now Surface has a dumb fucking name. And there's like, that is like the starkest example of Microsoft needing a product person higher up the chain than they currently have, I think.
Yes. Hire Jez for product placement naming for sure. Did we get everybody's take on that? But by the way, before I move on, like PTK, did I come to you on that? I actually don't remember.
I think I just jumped in. I'm pretty sure I jumped in and said something about it. Yeah. Okay.
Fuzz, any last thoughts before we jump on?
No, I think the biggest thing moving forward, I think they have the probably the most important aspect nailed down as far as the gaming will attract. Although, yeah, people may look at the other side. Been joking with a couple of people in the chat. It's like right now, PlayStation kind of feels like it's like the way Apple was back in the day when Microsoft helped them out or bailed them out. It almost feels like some of the games going to PlayStation is kind of like a bailout, because even said this earlier in a party chat. It's like if Sony was to fall off or get down to a point where Amazon or Apple has to step in to save them, and Microsoft isn't, kind of propping them up to some extent, that might make for a harder fight from Microsoft's perspective. But I think the fallout of, with studio closures, which yes, all of the platforms have been guilty of, but it seems like right now there's a lot of cancellations, and typically shortly after cancellations comes closures or layoffs. So I'm kind of glad they're not, having these walls up in so many instances, to the point where if Sony did fall off, it would probably hurt the industry more than anybody really wants to speak on at this moment. But I'm on board with their direction. Yeah, I would probably love to see the aspect of focus on more games being next gen, so that way maybe you do push the Series S a bit better. Like we also how the NCAA college football did in comparison, like because it wasn't playable on PS4 or Xbox One, a lot of people had to go to GameStop or Best Buy and pick up that next gen console, whether it be a PS5 or a Series console. But a lot of people were picking up Series consoles or Series S's just because $300. You could probably get it for under 300 with the game out the door. That's a hell of a deal in comparison to the other one's starting price being at 400 plus and stuff. So, and if you're trading in stuff, it makes that $300 even easier to reach. I think maybe if they're going to look to advance things any further on their end, just maybe convince EA Madden needs to be next gen only, or maybe consider doing Call of Duty next gen only, because even an Xbox One player, if they really wanted to, they could still do the console streaming, but PS4 can't. So you would at least possibly grab up some PS4, holdouts in that process. But that's it.
Third parties will never do that. They're fighting for survival right now. They need all the players they can get. I wouldn't be fucking surprised if like we go to PS6 and they're still releasing Madden and Call of Duty on the PS4. I seriously would not be surprised about that. Because it's not the hardware that matters, it's the users. And if there's still millions of users on PS4 and Xbox One, they will still release games on those systems, which will still damage next gen sales. But it doesn't matter if it damages next gen sales, because it's all about selling the games and selling the microtransactions at the end of the day. So, nobody cares if like today I saw a headline that Nvidia might stop supporting the 1000 series GPUs. That's like fucking how many years ago? GTX 1060 or whatever. Like, they're still supporting that thing, and like nobody has these sort of thoughts about the way PC is it's just one continuous stream of compatibility. Whereas like consoles have these like arbitrary like stoppages, and it's because the sales conversation dominates so much, but it's just not the way the industry is now. So I think you'll see even fewer games go next gen exclusive in the future.
And it's weird because a lot of games, I believe, when you are looking at what's compatible for that game, like when you're seeing the minimum specs, a lot of it is fitable to like the Series S, but then you get people call like a Series S like a potato. That's always been like an interesting thing I've been seeing around. But let's get into the Dev Direct and certain things from the Dev Direct. So now I've shown Jez's article. Now it's Ains' turn. So this Seasoned Gaming on the screen. This is an article where they kind of talked about Doom. So yeah. I kind of want to go over a couple games, but let's start first with Doom. It is scheduled to be released for Windows, Xbox Series X and S, and of course PlayStation 5 on May 15, 2025. Also dropping in day one to Game Pass. The other games, South of Midnight, launches on April 8th, 2025. So it'll like basically be South Midnight first, and then before that, and then eventually you'll be able to enter the fiery hells of hell, which is Doom. So a lot of cool things, a lot of cool features from this article, kind of just talking about what was mentioned in the Dev Direct. So I'm going to quote it. The action in Doom, The Dark Ages is a grounded experience focused on the sheer power that the Slayer wields, devastating melee abilities, and the return of strafing, a classic Doom maneuver. The team puts it best in Doom Eternal. You felt like a fighter jet, but in Doom, The Dark Ages, you'll be an iron tank, ready to stand and fight. A loadout of new melee weapons, plus a brand new melee skill tree, means you'll be able to get up close and personal to your demons and deliver some serious damage. It's all about engagement, creating a loop or dance that's intuitive, innovative, and loaded with depth. Fun on the outside, smart on the inside. Game director Hugo Martin says, in an appealing power fantasy that's new but familiar. Who hasn't wanted to feel like an iron tank in the middle of a medieval war against hell? So end quote. So I'm pumped that they are being inspired by the classic Doom. I always thought the modern day Doom already did a great job, though, in taking bits from the classic and finding new ways to evolve the gameplay from that. So it seems like that inspiration is diving in a bit further as they talked about grounding the gameplay a bit more. not as much like platforming, jumping sections, which people kind of complained about in Eternal. And it's also refreshing because you don't get to see a lot of these FPS skill based games nowadays. Like the glory kill system is something people are starting to pick up on. It seems to have changed a bit. Kind of missed that. My only obvious critique from what I saw, but maybe it's something that feels good when I get it in my hands. It's just hard to tell early on. A lot of people like the glory kill system where you just go up to somebody, like snap their neck, and you get stuck in this like a second animation. They kind of changed that in the game a little bit. But yeah, so I kind of wanted to see your guys' view on Doom: The Dark Ages, but I also wanted to take the conversation another way, where it's been interesting to me. This has been pointed out to me by Fuzzy, that developers can now fit their game on the newer potato Switch 2. So with all its tiled grass glory, we can finally pick games. ID Tech, they are wizards, so it was gonna probably go on the Switch regardless. They are. I don't know how they do it, but
I don't
let's bring the question to you, PTK. What did you think about Doom: The Dark Ages, and maybe bringing Switch into the conversation? What were your thoughts on that?
I am fucking pumped for this game. So listen, there's been a resurgence of just like hack and slash. Shout out to Dynasty Warriors, right?
Yeah.
Shout out to Ninja Gaiden 4. Shout out to Ninja Gaiden 2 Black, right? I'd love us getting back to this just stylized combat, man. Like I get the soul stuff is cool and it's trendy, but I love getting back to just chopping shit up, beating stuff up, shooting stuff up, and just allowing me different ways to do it. And that's basically seemingly what they did. They took the glory system, like you were talking about, and evolved it a little bit rather than it just being like a static animation. Now, I think he said you can do it from like different angles, like however you want. Like you can come in like an uppercut and then kind of a left hook and hit them with the flail afterwards. And then so you can kind of create little finishers, which is kind of cool, right? Like that's badass. You're looking at Doom Guy, I love something like that for Chief or something. But yeah, I think that's awesome. I'm super pumped for the game. I'm excited because they're allowing. Oh, obviously they said that the game was huge. I believe the biggest game that they've made to date. So the exploration, that's always been fun in that game as well too. The parkour was a bit of an issue. I loved the last two, but some of the parkour it almost turned into like a mini game, at least for me personally. Maybe it's a skill issue. I'm sorry, Chad. I apologize. I am getting a little bit up there. My fingers aren't as dexterous as they used to be. And I had a hard time with Eternal sometimes. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna turn this off. Like I was playing Roblox or something. Turning this off, man. Like I'm tired of just jumping and I'm having a swing and then jump here. Like it was a great game, but I do love that they got back to more of an OG, boots on the ground. You know what I mean? No pun intended. More of an iron tank. I love the fact that they included, and I don't know what you guys. I didn't have much of an opinion on what I thought that they would do with the mech. I fucking love it. Like I love the fact that it almost feels like you're using Doom Guy. I was worried. I don't know why I had this thought that it will be a little clunky. Knowing I should know better than that. It doesn't do anything clunky. The combat's never slow and clunky. So I don't know why I thought that they would just have this huge hulking kind of slow cinematic and you wouldn't be able to do it. It looks like you could literally control it like a Power Ranger almost. Yeah, like you could kind of dip in and out.
It's morphin' time. Yeah,
like it's kind of cool. So I love that. Obviously, now we have flight. That's really cool too. There's even I believe I heard him say specific like bosses to like air combat. Like you need to be able to fly around to kill these, bosses to be able to continue on with the story as well too. And didn't they mention that you don't necessarily have to follow the main story path? You can kind of just do whatever you want when you want to. Did I hear that correctly? I believe that they mentioned
I think so,
that
because you can bounce between different areas. It's not like story gated or something, or
there's
more exploration.
It's kind of hubbish. Yeah, there's a exploration layer. They had 3 pillars they were talking about. So one of them is exploration, and they basically, the quote is like essentially the upgrades that you find for yourself are going to be split between obviously combat and tackling enemies, bosses, right? But also you'll be able to find them in the environment. So we were kind of talking about that on Bigcast this morning. Like I'm big of an exploration in my games. Like I love it. So I'm just hoping they've got the balance right, because Doom is usually frantic and chaotic, right? It's like, don't mind, I like exploration, but let's make sure we don't lose the Doom identity along the way. You know what I mean?
That balance, like you said, because you need to feel like you're kind of claustrophobic in Doom as well too. You need to kind of always feel that way, like there could be anything around any corner. So how to balance that with the open world is cool too. So yeah, I'm really pumped for the game, brother. It gave me everything that I thought it would give me. I had no listen. That's not a company or dev that I ever worry about when they decide to make a new game. I just set it and forget it. They're one of the few that I don't even consider. As you can see, there was no 60 FPS conversation around this game whatsoever.
No, people are just like,
nobody was like, oh man, I wonder what that game. I wonder, man, 60 is probably bare minimum that is probably gonna hit. They are wizards with that tech. But yeah, I'm super excited, man. The game looks amazing. Can't wait to hear more about it.
Heck yeah. Ains, thoughts?
Super pumped. Yeah, I mean, we were in the showcase last year, and this came on, and they showed him with the cape and pulled out the shield, and man, I lost my shit. I was hyped as hell. Like, big Doom guy. Doom. I mean, I'm an old guy, so Doom is the first game I can still to this day remember in 1993 being in. I think it was a Sears or something, and walking by and seeing Doom running on a PC, and that was literally like from that point forward, I saved up to buy my first PC so I could play Doom. And it has been a big part of my gaming history. So yeah, I'm pumped for it. I think what they've talked about with this game is, as PTK said, being a little more grounded, getting back to kind of the strafing ability between shots and kind of like classic Doom, while adding the shield, while adding exploration and going a little harder with the story. Like they said, they're pulling some of the story elements out of the codex, right, and going into cutscenes, and it's going to have kind of a more cinematic story, if you will. But with all the combat, and I just love the theme of it. The kind of, it's almost like hell meets medieval, you know what I mean? And that's like you're playing in my two spaces, so this is great.
Hell.
Yeah, I mean, it's great, man. So I kind of followed up, and the article I put up is really just pulling a lot from Xbox Wire and a couple other places around what they're really going for here. But it just sounds, the vast majority of it sounds right up my alley, and I honestly personally think it'll probably be my favorite of the modern Doom games. I loved 2016 and Eternal. I tend to be one of those weirdos that preferred 2016 a little more than Eternal.
I'm a weirdo with you because I did as well. I preferred 2016 too. Yep.
But this looks to be kind of that with some additional things that I like. So yeah, I'm pumped, man. This is easily my most hype for the show. Out of the show, excuse me. And the fact that we get to play it in May as leaked ahead of time, right? But the fact that we get to play it in a few months is awesome. I can't wait.
Yeah. Jez, speaking of leaks, I'm just kidding. What are your thoughts on Doom, man?
I just think it looks fantastic. I mean, I don't have much to add beyond what you guys are saying, but like, on Xbox 2, I was pretty notoriously like, I hated the parkour monkey bars platforming bullshit in Eternal.
Yeah,
I'm someone who much preferred 2016.
Oh, okay.
Cool. I honestly prefer Doom 3 to Doom Eternal.
Whoa.
Which I know is not a popular opinion. It's not, that is not Doom to me. Like the agile thing, like to me, Doom guy is a tank, stand and fight kind of thing, not a jump around, leaping around like Goku or whatever. So I'm happy to see it sort of return to that and double down on it even. I'm not a big fan of some of the colorful button prompts, which, for parrying and whatever. I really think like there's got to be a better way to show a more immersive way to show prompts like that, and maybe it's like playing too much Souls games or whatever, or Monster Hunter even, where you actually look at the character model to know when to do certain things. But that's my only gripe with it, the multicolored, now you press this button thing. I thought that was kind of too gamey, especially like against the backdrop of this gorgeous medieval kind of setting, and then it's like these rainbow button prompts flying.
Would you be okay if you could toggle that off and on?
Let me turn it off. Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah, I'm sure that'll maybe be a feature. I don't know. The fact that they had a feature for speed, like game
That's
speed.
what I was going to ask you guys. Yeah, it sounds like you can almost fine tune this to be as fast or as slow as you want it to be, which is pretty interesting. So, yeah.
And I know they have this game being more open, like open world. So I wonder if that maybe had something to do with it. Like they did some testing, like people don't know where to go or they don't see the enemies. And it seems like there's a lot more enemies on the screen. So maybe it was just that. They're like, okay, let's just make the enemies like highlight or something. But yeah, I'm kind of with you, Jez. I would love to have a feature where it's off so I could just be a little bit more immersed. Have like a feature for that or something. That'd be kind of cool. So we got one last topic. We put it on. So it's fair. We gave Xbox some criticism and stuff, but now it's Sony's turn. You know, we're gonna go to Sony. It's Xbox. We did our thing with Xbox. So we had this topic in our last episode, but we'd love to get your guys' takes and perspectives on it. It's essentially Sony canceling some titles. So let me put something up so you guys can see some stuff. Here it goes. So yeah, so Sony canceled some games, right? And on this show, we kind of have a circulating topic where the industry is kind of headed, the balancing act that Xbox is attempting, which we talked about on here. So Sony recently canceled the Horizon MMO. Being the most recently canceled, I do have a list of which teams from Sony that has canceled games and the years of development. So I'm going to go through them. You have Gravity Rush team from 2017 to 2020 working on a game. Bluepoint from 2019 through 2024. Ben from 2019 through 2024. The Insomniac Spider-Man Online 2020 through 2023. Insomniac Venom team from 2020 through 2024. Naughty Dog 2019 to 2024. The London team 2019 to 2024. And then the Fire Sprite from 2021 to 2024. If you were to add up all of those games, you get over 30 years worth of game development canceled and roughly about $1 to $2 billion thrown away on canceled games in estimated development costs when I actually was going through it. So, yeah, that's a lot.
Pocket change, boys.
Yeah. Let's go for $3 billion. Let's go ahead. So yeah, like PlayStation originally planned 12 live service games. I think is it 8 or 9?
They're down to 2 or 3.
At least 8 of them that have been canceled. Yeah.
But 8, yeah. Okay, so 8 been canceled. And you kind of tie this up with Yoshida's comments on the Kind of Funny podcast, where he states, "Fans, if you want great first party games, you gotta buy remakes and remasters, right?" And to me, while everyone is saying Xbox is going third party, Sony's out here canceling games from left to right with like a in comparison. So now I've been in mentality that I believe Sony having a reliance on live service games is actually a good thing, because it kind of fills this hole in their portfolio. Like Xbox doesn't really have that problem of needing recurring revenue for their live service games. It's basically like in their DNA at this point, with like a ton of their games having some sort of multiplayer element to them. But I always believe it was a good thing that Sony started to pivot to live service, even though a lot of their fans, they love those single player experiences. But I believe this because their game budgets are getting more and more expensive to make, and the financial gains getting a bit minimal in certain games. Like Astrobot, a critical success. That game was super fun. It sold only 1.5 million copies, which I mean, I wish I had a game that sold 1 million copies, but 1.5 million copies for Sony out of the 65.5 million PS5s out there. Is not a lot. The most recent Crash Bandicoot, for example, sold more than Astrobot. With Crash Bandicoot 4, I think the recent one it's about time sold over 5 million copies. So I just feel like Jim Ryan was reading the tea leaves on where Sony was at the time and where they needed to be in the market. And the current truth is, I mean, I mentioned beginning of the show, the top selling games each month, PlayStation, are not only live service titles, and kind of telling that to people are saying good, like I'm glad they're canceled and stuff like that. Some of them are questionable, like why did they do a God of War live service game? I digress, but it does put them in an interesting predicament. So I definitely want to get your guys' outlook on all this. I'll bring it to you first, Ains. I'm just curious, man. What are your thoughts on the cancellations? Like, what are you thinking?
It's a train wreck. I mean, I don't really know how you look at this as anything but. We had a long conversation about this on Bigcast last week of just like as you added it up, right? You're not talking about just some live service projects now, right? You're talking about several studios. And when you factor in all that money and time spent and waste, and then factor it against what you could have invested in, right? Now, I mean, we've talked a lot this show already. Microsoft, all big companies invest in things and have to pull back or go a different direction. I mean, that happens all the time. But this is pretty crazy. If you think about the success that PlayStation had with the PlayStation 4 generation and what they built upon. And I think you kind of touched on a little bit, which is like they felt they had that, for lack of a better phrase, kind of in the bag as like it's locked. And then we need to go build first party live service for this recurring revenue. I think we've seen a couple things. One, that's harder than nearly any company thinks it is, and that's been proven time and time and time again. So this is just another example of that. Two, I think factoring into this conversation is the fact that the industry and the day-to-day player base across the industry has changed a bit. Jez joked earlier about most people are just playing Fortnite and they don't give a F what's going on outside of that. And that's, I know you said that jokingly, Jez, but I mean, we know that's true to a percentage of the gaming community. And, you see like the Matt Piscatellas and the analysts of the world talking about, look, there's a huge portion or percentage of the day-to-day gaming community and investment that is invested in a handful of games. You've got your Call of Duty, you've got your Fortnite, you've got your Roblox, your Apex Legends, your Minecraft. Marvel Rivals is obviously, elevated really quickly, but it's really hard to get a game to break through to be a significant player in that space now. It's crazy because it's reminiscent in ways of what we were talking about with the ecosystem conversation. It's like people feel they have a couple $1,000s invested in skins or passes or content unlocked in something like a Fortnite, and that's where their friends play, and that's where they play every day, and they're used to that game and they know it. And it's like, I don't want to go learn that new game and start over again. Like, why would I do that? I'm having fun here, and everything I have is here. And so I think PlayStation underestimated that. That we know that PlayStation tends from the outside looking in to get a little cocky sometimes. And I think they thought we can just kind of throw some development talent and money at this and we'll have our own live service suite. And I think they learned the hard way that that's a lot harder than they thought it was going to be. So, but I don't see how you look at this any other way than it's a train wreck. It's a ton of lost jobs, talent, money, time. And if PlayStation, going back to what we said at the start, if they didn't have that brand strength and that kind of backing globally that they've built out over the course of decades, if this was a smaller company or a company that didn't have that, they'd be in a lot of trouble. This could have taken down smaller companies. So it's going to be interesting to see where they pivot. We were just talking about, it's almost like the pendulum swings, right? Like Xbox's game lineup for their first party output looks tremendous. Super excited about it, right? In the coming months and years now. Whereas PlayStation, it's like, well, what do we got? We know that Wolverine's in development. We know that you got Ghost of Yotei coming. But for such a large publisher, what do you got for me? And it's clear that they're going to lose a lot of time there. So, and by the way, for those who aren't aware, just to be clear, the Horizon MMO that was canceled that you started with, 3-bit, that was canceled because that was a deal they struck. Was it NetEase? One of those big partner companies.
Yeah.
They struck a deal. So that's canceled. However, the next Horizon game is, as of this moment anyway, that we know, is an online Horizon game. So like
okay.
there's two different Horizon Online things that were coming.
I forgot about that. Okay,
Mhm.
okay, got
Yeah, so we'll see. I mean, we'll see where that even goes and what they're going to do with that and if it's successful. But anyway, I'll stop talking now. But yeah, the I don't see how it's anything but a massive bust, for lack of a better word.
No, I completely get that. So yeah, let's bring it to you, Fuzz. What are your overall thoughts, man?
Ooh, I'll try to keep this somewhat short, but like for me, as somebody that also owns a PS5, it's not my primary box, but it is my exclusives box. That's the only reason why I own it. I play a ton of GT7 on it, play Ratchet and Clank on it, have God of War on it, and a few others, Spider-Man Miles Morales on it and whatnot. It's worrisome, like as somebody that wanted to see them, test the waters of games as a service, and I know that's not what they're known for, but when I hear things like the concept of that Spider-Verse game that would have been like GTA, but a Marvel Spider-Man version, that intrigued me. Like that's something that I could see. Although most of my friends list are also those that own Xboxes as well, because I found out the hard way. A lot of those that I know that only own PlayStation don't seem to play the multiplayer first party stuff. Like what was it? Ghost of Tsushima had the multiplayer. Not many people would be on it, and I'd already finished the game and got my red armor, wanted to go and hop into that, and it didn't seem like anybody was really of interest of playing that, which was weird to me. But having something like Spider-Verse, that looked intriguing. I still don't understand what they were thinking by canceling factions. Like, okay, let's look at it this way. Maybe it wasn't as much as what they had hoped the grand picture would be, but let's look at the snapshot in time. What game was everybody clamoring for and had on their wish list that eventually wound up being a scam to some extent? And that was what, the day before, I think it was.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
They had the
that.
formula to slide in that spot and the cash and the name and all that to go ahead and make an actual real working version of that game. And their name alone would have probably carried them to scoop up all those customers that wanted that type of game and take it forward and listen to the customer feedback. Like the only other ones out there that could have probably did it was Ubisoft with The Division, but they didn't really want to go the whole zombie route, even though they kind of have zombie mode sometimes. But like they had an easy win with that, I think, or at least in my vision and how much I played The Division, how much I played the first, online portion of The Last of Us. I don't understand what they were thinking. Like I said, when Concord, closed its doors or shut down and everything, if I was somebody over at Naughty Dog, I would have kicked somebody's door in and be like, can we just release what we had as is? And I guarantee you I'll get more players than that game has ever had in its entire lifetime in the first 2 hours. Like there's no question that game would do some sort of numbers that were much better than what Concord did. And let's not get it twisted. Concord, the cost of that studio, the cost of that game, that what little bit we found out, that's a tuck your tail between your legs kind of moment. Like everybody wants to clown Microsoft on Scalebound being canceled and whatever money was wasted. This is like 10 Scalebounds, at least I would believe. So I don't understand how people aren't asking Sony, like, are you okay? Do you need a tissue or something? Like there's a lot more to it. And Bungie, okay. Everybody wanted to clown Xbox again about, the acquisition of Activision. Well, Bungie is a much better, thing for Sony to do. It's like, okay, they're still paying for it. They dissolved part of the team to work on that Gummy Bears thing that's now under kind of PlayStation, I guess. They're already, dismantling Bungie as we know it. And Bungie is struggling even with its own, main IP. Like the funny thing is, people on PlayStation play Destiny 2 less now than they did before it was purchased. And that's got to be hurting Sony, because if you're not supporting that game now, they're just hemorrhaging money for no reason. And we saw how Marathon did when they went to those influencers that play a lot of Escape from Tarkov, because that's who they had their sights on. And we see how poorly that went. They asked everybody at the end of that demo, would you play this? Not one of them would raise their hand. Why? Because it's not going to ever be an Escape from Tarkov. Yes, it's a different atmosphere, being futuristic, but there's some unique niche stuff that's in Tarkov that you cannot replicate on a big budget type of thing. Not knocking Tarkov either, but it just feels like they had their sights on the wrong thing. Like once again, Escape from Tarkov, I still think Ubisoft with Massive and The Division are the best ones to take that head on or bring that into the mainstream. I mean, they kind of did that already with the survival mode from the first Division, and the way the Dark Zone works. That's the draw and the lure for things like Escape from Tarkov. They already have that. So, having Bungie try to recreate that, or anybody in the PlayStation fold try to recreate that, I think they would have been better off bringing SOCOM back and then spinning that into something along those lines. That to me would have made more sense. Which we don't know if Deviation Games, which eventually closed down, that was a third-party partnered studio that was making a game for them that was a games as a service. Could that have been SOCOM? And if we ever find that out, it's like that was your not necessarily your replacement for Call of Duty, but that would have probably brought in more dollars than what even what is it, Helldivers 2 is doing for them, which that's a golden goose that they kicked in the tush and throughout the house kind of deal, because they said, well, we're going to make everybody sign into PSN, which I understand. I've been in those companies where you want to have as much of your user base data in your hands as opposed to going through the third party of using like Steam Portal to figure out how many people are playing and whatnot. But you have to incentivize that PC crowd to want to willingly do it. Like if you gave up or offered some skins or some weapons, like the way they have in their season pass stuff as like freebies for doing that, I think a lot more people would have signed up, especially if, you got a light machine gun, a heavy machine gun, and an assault rifle that you get free every time you connect your PSN. I guarantee you that would have been the better approach, as opposed to like, hey, do this or you can't play the game. Oh, by the way, we're closing off all these countries where we already sold the game, so now Steam has to do a refund. Like, get out of here. How are you even in business doing business that way? Like, I get it. Consoles are different from PC, but they still have a lot to learn in that regard. And the fact that nobody's really talking about that, at least on the Team Blue side of things, it's like they're always looking at Team Green like, you should ask for more. You should hold them accountable. Have you seen a mirror lately, guys? Like, are you really paying attention to what's going on with your preferred platform? Like, this isn't good. Like, I was all for GT7 coming to PC. Instead, they did that freebie demo, which, okay, I don't think you're going to get any more players with a demo. Everybody that was already in the PlayStation ecosystem that wanted to buy GT7 already bought it. In fact, there are tons of people I know on my friends list that bought the game just to buy the game and barely even play it. Why? Because I see that they only have 2 trophies on it. It's like, come on. Oh, I beat their fastest lap in like, hour 3 of me having the game. It's like, come on, put it on PC. Make it so it's a game that's moddable and can kind of, circumvent, a set of course as being the de facto, non-subscription based online sim that's moddable and has the mod support. Like if you put GT7 in that slot, I guarantee you'll have that games as a service level money, because then you'll have people like me and tons others that will double dip and buy that game. And whether you make it so that their PSVR 2 that's now compatible on PC works with it, or they can take whatever VR head unit to use on that, I guarantee you see more sales of that game. You're not going to see any more sales from a demo that you put on there, years later, 2 years after the fact. But it's weird to me that nobody's really shining that spotlight on the fact that, okay, you cancel these games, which if Xbox did that, it would be calls for Phil's head. There would be calls for the tombstone for Xbox and whatnot. Why aren't we talking about how they have to hit the reset button and how many years down the road it might be before we see a lot of that first party stuff? Like, sure, Ghost of Yotai is supposed to be this year. We already see Wolverine bopping around on PC as a stolen quantity, and maybe we see that in 2026. Was it Intergalactic? We know that's at least 2 years out. And for people that are like, oh, PlayStation only shows things a year out, do you not remember how long it was between Ghost of Tsushima from its original sighting to when it was released? It was like 4 years. I know, because that was one of my favorite games over there. They don't just wait until like just before the game's release. Intergalactic might wind up being a PS6 game at launch kind of deal.
Right.
And with that being said, do we see Spider-Man 3? If and when we do see Spider-Man 3, is it going to be like the leak where it's divided up into 3 parts? $70 here, $70 there, and $70 for the finale, or are they going to figure out some sort of other way to do it? Where they already canceled Spider-Man 2 DLC, which I guess Spawn was supposed to be part of that, or not Spawn, Venom was supposed to be part of that.
Yep.
So I don't know. I've been vocal about what I don't like about PlayStation, like the DualSense battery not lasting long, my original DualSense stick drift, but I guess all controllers have these days, and various other things that have just been anti-consumer, like their return policy and whatnot. But like nobody wants to talk about when their favorite platform stumbles. I mean, sure, there's us in the Xbox community that are kind of that same way, but we'll go ahead and say our 2 cents about something that might directly affect us on occasion. It feels like PlayStation's like they got their head in the sand like an ostrich or something. I don't know, and it's no slight to anybody in that community. It's just it feels like if I'm the only one complaining about the controller and you're making fun of Xbox because of batteries, but my retort is my Elite controller never has to worry about a recharge. I could leave it off the charger for 3 days and still get 8 hours of gaming in each one of those days. What are we talking about? Like rechargeable batteries wind up being better than the internal batteries in the base controller. I've never had a problem with the rechargeable batteries. As far as my DualSense controllers, they went from when I first got the PS5 for 6 hours of life to now it's down to like 3 or 4 hours. How do I know? Because I play a lot of GT7 using those controllers on occasion. So I don't know. It feels like the gaming media, not as a whole, but the bigger outlets, let's just say like your IGNs of the world are they got blinders on. It's almost like they're like nah 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 nah, thumbs in the ears or whatever. And it's frustrating because I know 2 weeks from now they're going to talk about the Series S being a potato again, or they'll bring up about the batteries in the controller in 2025 or something ridiculous like that. Or should Phil still have a job with games going everywhere? What's the need of an Xbox? Like, focus on your preferred platform because they're in spooky territory now. Like I've been saying for years, it's going to get to a point where maybe Apple or Amazon steps in. I think that time is looking even closer now, considering how much money they lost in all of those cancellations, studio closures, and still paying for Bungie, and not being able to do some of even their movie and studio deals as far as that's concerned with other entertainment. It's like, not saying they're hurting for money, but it just feels like at this point they're starting to pinch pennies, like 10% in Kadokawa as opposed to buying them outright.
Oh, yeah.
That should tell you everything.
Yeah.
But I've rambled enough. I'm sorry. Gotta give other people some time here.
No. Well, dang, that was spitting some facts there. All right. Yeah, Jez, let's get your point of view on all the different cancellations stuff that Fuzzy said, and what are your overall thoughts, man?
Damn.
Like,
I think Sony's going through its ZeniMax arc, and I would presume they're probably outside the other end of it now. ZeniMax, before they were acquired, they went through this weird panic where they were like, oh shit, we need to have a service game because everyone has a service game and single player games are not doing so hot. And the margins are just so good on FIFA Ultimate Team and Fortnite and llama boxes or Overwatch loot crates back when they had loot crates and pinatas and all that bullshit. So they made Wolfenstein Youngblood, which was fucking bad, and Fallout 76, which was a disaster at launch, and Elder Scrolls Online, which was also rated 6 out of 10 on Metacritic, if I can remember correctly. ESO, to its credit, improved. Fallout 76, to its credit, improved. But, you can see the way those games are sort of rushed out, unpolished, underloved, and in a mess, the sort of haphazard way they went about it. It's crazy, and I think that's what Sony's just gone through now. But like the difference between, ZeniMax, Microsoft, and Sony is that Sony doesn't want to have a stinker to its name. And it kind of comes back to what we were talking about earlier with regards to taste. They really want to control the view, they want to control the narrative that they are known for high quality all the time out of their own studios. Yep. And the problem is with service games, sometimes you have to go through periods of low quality, like World of Warcraft, for example. Yeah, like World of Warcraft had some really terrible expansions over the course of its life. Sea of Thieves launched in a state, like an empty game, and sort of built up to something really special. I mean, if you go back and play like the first versions of Minecraft, there's no fucking features in it whatsoever. They built up, all these games built up to something special. Fallout 76 as well, and they found their audience. Like, I thought it was funny that Microsoft released its they call it the Xbox Excellence Awards or whatever, where they award a bunch of games for based on their engagement stats. And I was surprised to see that Skull and Bones was one of the most played games in terms of individual user hours on Xbox last year. Wow. Skull and Bones, a game that was almost universally panned by everyone, but it found its audience apparently, and For Honor as well. It's another Ubisoft game that is high quality, but it's vanishingly niche. And I feel like Sony, if Sony does want to figure out the service game arena, I think it's going to have to just accept that it's going to have to release a few games that aren't particularly great from the get-go. Like, so many MMOs launch to try and compete with WoW, and it's like, how do you compete with WoW, which has literally 20 years of content on top of it? You need a time machine to achieve that. Sometimes you just have to build a game up from scratch, especially in the live service, live ops world. Unless you get a unicorn or something truly unique like Helldivers 2. Like, there's nothing really like Helldivers out there. This sort of ongoing role play kind of dynamic shooter kind of game. There's nothing really like that, Yeah.
Power World's a good example too.
Yeah, exactly. But I don't know if Sony's got the stomach to get there, but I think increasingly it's going to have to really consider this stuff, because they're sort of their business is underpinned by live service transactions, and that it's none of their games. They don't own any of them.
Yeah.
And they're sort of like, they're reliant on Epic Games and Microsoft to keep playing nice with them for those microtransactions. There's like, you've given someone else control over your destiny, which is something I've criticized Microsoft for as well. By supporting PlayStation, you're potentially handing your destiny off to PlayStation, in some regards. Right. But I don't know. I think Sony will figure it out. It was never, but whoever greenlit God of War live service game probably shouldn't be anywhere near concepting games.
Yeah, that was a weird one. But I mean, I think Horizon also would be a weird TV show. But so I'm not in that department for sure. PTK, let's get your views, man, and then we'll get on out of here.
Well, here we are, fellas. Right, here we are. So no, just the whole PlayStation situation is kind of ironic, and just to bounce off of everything everybody said, if you've just been paying attention, this is what Sony. This is all self-inflicted. Like, it's something that we've seen over the last 15 years. When you tell your fan base that the only good game is a third-party action adventure story narrative-driven game, that's what you get. You threw away multiplayer. You stopped doing your own multiplayer. You said, forget it. I know what you was working on before. Guerrilla, don't do that anymore. Come make something else. You know what I mean? Like, people, these studios, Twisted Metal, none of that. SOCOM, none of that. You ignored essentially multiplayer for 3-4 generations, and now you're trying to jump back on a horse and You said, forget it. We're just going to buy a stable. One of these horses got to be good. Like, there's no method to the madness. You don't have the ability. And like you guys said, you guys pointed this out. That is one of the strengths of Xbox. Their games have always come as a complete game, is what I consider a complete game. You know, as a full-fledged offering. You got the single player, multiplayer, a lot of times Forge, a lot of other different modes, ranked, all that kind of stuff. And that's built in, baked into the original idea of the game. That's not how they make games at PlayStation. You know, and it's ironic that we've heard this 3 or 4 years ago. Jim said it, Herman said it. They came out and said it themselves. We love selling 30 million copies of God of War and Spider-Man, but that's not good enough. Because we only do that for a month and then the sales completely fall off a cliff. We don't get anything for those games anymore. So this is something that they absolutely have to navigate, and we're watching them do it in real time. It is ugly. It's going to be ugly. I do think ultimately they'll be fine. You cannot make up those resources and time that you wasted. So you have to figure it out. And the one thing that is ironic about all of this is that people think that they don't have to do this. Sony absolutely has to go through this. Like, they still need live service games despite what their own fan base may think that they don't need them. Because I see, you know, you see a lot of the feedback was, oh, well, thank God.
Good. Yeah, good.
They're finally pivoting to what they're good at. Thank God. Well, what they're good at got them to this point. The same thing you're giving them credit for got them to this very point. Because that's all they were doing, you know, and it worked for a while. You know, budgets get higher. Those margins get really thin. You got to figure out other ways to get money out of these games. So it's not something that they can just ignore and go away from. They have to figure this out. And it's something that we're going to watch them do in real time. And like Jez stated, they're going to have to take some L's. You're going to have to take some L's. It happens. Like you just listed off a bunch of games, Jez, that weren't very good to begin with. But one thing that Xbox does, you know, they do support these ideas that, you know, a lot of developers have, a lot of first party developers have, even if it's a team of like 10 people. It was grounded. Well, like 10 people, Jez? It was a small group of people that
12.
had 12 people had a
gosh.
small idea and said, well, can we get a little time to try this out? And then maybe give us a year and then we'll present you guys something. They allowed them to go do that. And look at now, you got 30, 40 million people that have played the game. Right. So it's just, you have to go through that. So we're seeing them kind of trying to figure this out in real time, and it's going to be ugly, but you got to be honest about it, man. It's not good for them right now. That pushes the roadmap back as far as their first party. It was already paltry before the cancellations. Now it's even worse, and you have to be honest about that. If you're a PlayStation fan, what are you getting? And if we're thinking about this, you should really be clapping coming out of that dev direct, because if all of that shit was still exclusive, you guys literally would have nothing to play on PlayStation. Thank God that Xbox is taking the initiative of putting their games on PlayStation as well, because you take some of that stuff away. Just look at the list. Scratch those off that should have or could have been exclusive to Xbox. You really have not very much for the next year and a half. So they'll figure it out, though. Like Jez said, I agree as well. It's just them having to do it in real time. It's going to be ugly for a while, but they'll get it together.
Okay. And I believe like Sony's something Jez hinted on is Sony's in that position where they're canceling these games, and something that was leaked in the Insomniac documents was how people perceive the brand. Like that was actually a moment in the documents where it talked about how people perceive it, this premium outlook that people have of them. And I believe that outlook has it so they want that immediate success. If they have an inkling that they won't get that success, they give up supporting it. I mean, there's a lot of examples of that, and that model does not work for live service. Like modern day live service games kind of require you to build it up over time, and Sony doesn't seem to have the patience to sort of see that through. Like a game that no one even really thinks about, Elder Scrolls Online, makes $15 million per month. So they're just making bank on having a multitude of just different live service games. It's just, that's not a problem that they have. But I feel like Sony could figure it out. I mean, maybe. We'll see. But I'm going to read the question in the chat and then we'll get on out of here. Omi Tony says, questions to the panel. Should studios consider and be allowed to sell off dying games to other smaller studios that could rework the game? Is there not a universe where dead games can pull a Sea of Thieves or a No Man's Sky? I'll bring the last one to you, Ains. What do you think?
Oh, That's yeah. I don't think it's not that they're not allowed. I think the logistics of doing so is probably a huge challenge.
Yeah.
You have that code base you have to hand off to someone that probably there's probably a reason it got canceled or it isn't finished, and that means probably some sort of problematic code issues, design, a lot of things that would have to be reworked. And then you lose one instead of losing like, not to get us off topic, but we've talked in the Xbox space of like contractors, right? You lose institutional knowledge where you have someone work on something for a year to 18 months and then they're gone. Handing off a project like that is like you have no institutional knowledge. So you need literally a team to go in there, pick it up and try to figure out what the hell was even built, and then what you can even do with it. So I don't think it's not that it's not allowed. I think that it's probably an expensive proposition in a time to benefit ratio. And if a team or some developers, whoever makes a decision that this is too problematic to carry forward with, there's probably good reason for that. That said, I think that's probably to scale too. There may be smaller games where that's easier to do versus say these big AAA projects. So I'm not really sure in that space, but just some high level thoughts. I mean, I know you've worked on stuff in this space more. You may have better insight knowledge than I do there. But
I mean, I've worked in the AAA space and more so on the art side, but it's to me it's I pretty much agree with everything you said. I think could they do it? Yes, but there's logistic problems with doing that. Like, what was the reason for the cancellation? Was it bug issues? Was it more so marketing issues? Is there similar games to it like right now? Like for example, like Concord, I believe a major problem with Concord was there's other hero shooters out there and they're free, and you're trying to jump into that space and at a price like $40. So it's like, okay.
It didn't separate itself at all.
Yeah, I was gonna say exactly.
And I liked Concord. Like I reviewed Concord. Like I liked it, but like it didn't do anything that was going to pull people to it.
Yeah. Jez, I saw you jump up. Did you have any thoughts on that question from chat?
Oh, sorry. Can you repeat it?
So basically, he's saying like, question to the panel: should studios consider kind of allowed to sell off dying games to other smaller studios? I guess to a degree, it's kind of happened with Hi-Fi Rush, right? Kind of.
Yeah, kind of.
It's more sequel than completed game, though, right?
Yeah.
Or half completed game.
Yeah, true.
It's kind of interesting because, like, if we look at like PlayOn, for example, or what are they called now? Embracer Group, right? Embracer Group basically did that. They bought up all the rights to THQ's back catalog in an auction after, a bankruptcy auction, right? And their sort of thing was, we're gonna do something with all this IP. So far, they've done fuck all with it. And you could argue that they've actually made a pig's ear of things like Saints Row and stuff like that, right? So I think sometimes franchises are dead for a reason, and I think Crackdown 3 is another good example of franchise being dead for a reason, kind of.
Okay. Are you confirming that Half-Life 3 is dead? It's gone?
Half-Life 3. I don't know. I think Half-Life 3 will come back.
Okay.
I think Half-Life will come back, but I honestly don't know. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if. I mean, I'd like to see it. There's a lot of dead franchises that I would like to see come back if they were actually good. Like, for example, I got a lot of nostalgia for Capcom's Breath of Fire franchise, for example. And doesn't look like they're ever going to do anything with it. So would be kind of cool to hand it off to a smaller dev if they were interested in it. I do think a lot of it does seem like these days there seems to be a trend towards openness. Like, for example, WWE just signed a deal with competing wrestling federations for like to let their wrestlers like wrestle there and cross pollinate a bit, create crossover events and crossover storylines. So maybe they're sort of realizing that if we've got all this stuff, rather than hoard it, all this IP, why not actually let someone do something with it? But I don't know.
Yeah,
will it ever happen? I suppose it's hard to say, right? But Baldur's Gate 3 actually is a good example of a franchise that was dead, and as an indie studio pitched the license holder, and then they've revived it. That's a good example of an example where that actually worked out really well. So clearly, it can work really well, and I would bet that as well. Once Bloober Teams finished remaking Silent Hill 1 and 3, they'll probably end up doing their own Silent Hill, and maybe it's really good.
Yeah, good points. All right, let's get on out of here. So I appreciate everybody for jumping into chat. Someone mentioned Concord, bringing that back as a dating simulator. Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. I appreciate everybody for coming on in. Jez, thanks so much for what you do. Yourself and Ains, you're one of the few journalists out there I actually like and respect. Love both of your takes on the industry and what you're doing on the investigative fronts. So respect you so much, man. It means a lot, you both coming onto the show. But Jez, for our audio listeners and people out there who for some reason don't follow your content, where can people find you? And any lasting thoughts?
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, man. Like, I was supposed to come on last week, but I can't remember what happened. Something happened. Time is just an abstract concept to me now. Something happened, so I'm glad that I was able to get in this week. You can find all my stuff at. I've got a domain now because on Blue Sky, they want you to have your own domain. So I made jezcorden.com.
Oh yeah, I was going to try to set. How do you set that up? Is it just like through your settings or something?
Just through settings, buy a domain, and then you have to attach a record to the domain to verify it. But yeah, jezcorden.com has all my links, all my socials. Active on Blue Sky, Twitter in its death throes, and on windowscentral.com. Thanks very much for having me, man.
Yeah, no problem. Ains, thanks so much for joining, man. Tell the peoples where they can find your stuff and what you got going on.
Yeah, thank you guys, man. I appreciate the invite. It's great to catch up with you. It's been a long time since I've kind of gotten out of the weeds and hung out with you guys, so I appreciate it. Yeah, for me, it's real simple. Just seasongaming.com. I appreciate any support. We're a small independent site, no monetization, so just people swinging by helps us out. And you can find me. It's a Jez's joke. I'm kind of done with Twitter at this point. So yeah, check us out on Blue Sky, and of course, Season Gaming Discord, where we just hang out. Good community there. Easy going conversations. If you want to swing by, I'd appreciate it. So thank you again.
Of course, yours. And PTK, man, thanks so much for joining, brother. Yeah. Please tell people where they can find you and when you're playing Diablo and all that. What you got going on?
First and foremost, I want to say thank you and Fuzzy for having me on. It was great to jump on, man. Got to come back sometime soon. Awesome to be here with Ains again. It's been a while, Ains. I got to get you back on the show. Jez, first time being on the show with Jez. Got to get him over at the shop sometime. So awesome being here with these gentlemen as well too. But yeah, PTK Blam across the board. I am on Blue Sky as well, so you can find me there. Hopefully, he put that down in the socials. Maybe you can grab it there, Twitter as well too. So Shop Podcast is coming back. We're gonna be on a new day, more than likely as well too. Looking at Sunday, so just to be easier for me personally. So we will be back though. You guys will be getting a notice if anybody in the chat watches the Shop Podcast. But thank you, 3-Bit. Appreciate you, brother. I'd love to come back sometime soon. But yeah, you guys catch me there, and we'll see you around.
Yeah. You guys are all invited back whenever. Now that I got the setup for more than 5 people, come on in. I'll figure out the rest. Ended it with my co-host, The Fuzz. Thanks so much for joining me as always in the co-captain chair. Please tell people where they can find you. What do you got going on?
Oh, just want to start off by saying this was awesome. Always loved doing podcasts with you 3-bit, but it was so special having Jez and having Ains and having my brother PTK on here as well. This was an awesome conversation. I know we may not always see eye to eye on everything Xbox does, but in the grand scheme of things, I think we all can say we are enjoying our time on Xbox or just in gaming in general, because this year is going to be a phenomenal year with releases from not just them, but from third parties as well and stuff. So yeah, I'm just so thankful to be here with you guys. And for all those that want to hear my rambles and rants on anything gaming related, I'm on all social media except for Facebook because I'm not using my government name anywhere. So just do a search for Fuzzy Belvedere, whether it's YouTube, Blue Sky, Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, Instagram, and all the others. Fuzzy Belvedere, and you can find me. But 3-bit, let everybody know what you got going on and where they can find you.
I always think about that, by the way, where I meet someone at a convention and I call them by like their gamer name. Like when I met Mav for the first time, I was like, oh yeah, Mav. Like, and people call me 3-bit. It's like, I don't know, it's just interesting when you finally meet the people that you're podcasting with and hanging out with. You had that, Ains? You had experience.
Oh yeah. I mean, I actually switched to Ains because that's what my friends call me in real life. It's a lot shorter than my full name. But yeah, I mean, a lot of people who I game with and know just call me Porsche.
Yeah.
Because I go by Porsche Power and everyone just shortened that. So yeah, we all kind of do it to one another.
Yeah, it makes it simple. But as always, we end the show with a thank you to everyone who follows our content. If you guys agreed with us or not, let us know in the comment section down below on what I was wrong about 3-bit. You were wrong. It was actually this date or something. Just let us know why and just hit us up. Let us know on what we could do to improve the show. All ears here. For our audio listeners, be sure to tell others about the show. Leave a like, tell your friends, neighbors, scream it into a Halo or Call of Duty lobby. Don't really care. All support is appreciated, but never really expected. So I'm 3-bit, and we are signing off. See you guys on the next episode of the Pixelated Echoes. Bye, all.